I'm here with Dr. Judith Reisman, a professor of research at Liberty University, author, international speaker, and advocate for child rights, and most recently, a guest in Montreal for the Quebec Catholic Parents Association to speak about the Kinsey Institute within the scope of our fight against the new Quebec sex ed course. So, welcome, Dr. Reisman.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Well, we're really glad to have you. I'd like to do a short interview with you about pornography. And I think maybe we should start with an easy question.
Okay.
You're against soft porn. Why? What's wrong with soft porn?
Well, soft porn, as I wrote in my book, soft porn plays hardball, Okay, soft porn was never soft. It was always an advocacy magazine, starting with Playboy. Playboy was a pornography advocacy magazine. We knew that it would result in child pornography because Playboy started out using child pornography. And I tried to explain that to people, but it was done very cleverly through cartoons at first. But now, of course, in our country, in the United States, we recognize cartoons as, if they're with children and adults in a sex scene, we recognize that as child pornography, and people get arrested for that. Well, when I wrote about it, I said these cartoons are child pornography, and people didn't understand that still. So the cartoons began the use of children in sex scenes, and it evolved in Playboy. I was talking about the only pornography at the time. It evolved into photographs, for example, of Brooke Shields and other actresses, ages 13, 14, nude, and very graphically displayed. So they were on their way.
Okay, but so a problem was solved. It was recognized that there was children involved. So that's been criminalized. So why shouldn't soft porn be allowed if there are no children involved? Shouldn't adults who consent to either be photographed or purchase this material, shouldn't they be allowed to do what they want?
No, unfortunately, I do not think that they should. Most of the, as a matter of fact, we could say just about all the young women, let's just talk about the women at this point, although it applies, I'm sure, to males too. Most young women who enter the, quote, porn industry have entered in the past through drugs, through early sex abuse, So they have gone into this industry hoping that it will give them a leg up somehow. But it always, drugs, and today, always drugs, alcohol, serious drugs, serious abuse takes place for these young women, and the men too, young men too. When they're working in the industry, you're talking about 3, 4, 5 men on a female, on a young, impressionable female, because they don't last long, so they have to be young. You're talking about doing, I cannot go into what they do, but vile, horrible things to this young woman. This is not love. This is not soft. There's nothing soft about it. And they end up dropping out very quickly, becoming addicts, falling off the trail. These are terrible experiences for these young women.
Okay, well, that's horrible for the people who participate in the industry. But from the perspective of a consumer, there are couples who view pornography, who play things out, who use it to get aroused, and who generally have or say they have good experiences.
Yeah.
Why is that wrong?
Yes. Yes, it's quite wrong.
Why?
Because the male and the female, of course, are meant to find love with each other, to find joy with each other, to find intimacy with each other. The use of these other human beings as stimulants. We used to understand that that was voyeurism. We used to understand that those who portray these things are exhibitionists. This is mental. This is a mental problem. These are psychologically damaged people. These are psychologically damaged people that you as a consumer use. You don't use human beings that way without you yourself paying a severe price. I will tell you a story. A psychiatrist I knew I went out to lunch with him one time, and he said to me, Judy, he said, what do you have against pornography? He said, in my practice, and this is common in this practice of psychology, psychiatric practice, sexology certainly. He says, in my practice, we use pornography. We a couple comes to us and they have a problem in intimacy and in their ability to have relations, and so we give them pornography. Show them soft pornography, lovely pornography. He said, this was a long time ago. And he said, and it's good, it helps them. So I said, oh, that's really interesting, okay. I said, and what have your long-term studies shown for these couples that come to you with trouble? I said, have you followed them to see if they end up getting divorced? To see if one of them ends up being an offender against somebody? Have you studied them to see if their relationships are good relationships in subsequent years? Because that's what science is all about. It's over time. Let's look at this over time. So he said, well, no, he said, but I know that the couples that we show them are loving couples, loving married couples. This gives you some idea of the knowledge behind all this so-called help. And I say, well, how do you know they're loving married couples? And he said, well, maybe I don't know that they're married, but they're loving. And I say, well, okay. So are you in pornography? Do you do pornography with your wife? At which he blanched and said, no, of course not. I don't do it with my wife. So I said, well, why not? If it's so loving, why don't you as a psychiatrist demonstrate for everybody else, the joy and the pleasure of that sort of behavior with your own wife? No, he would not expose his wife. Well, you don't want to expose your loved one. Yeah? First of all, you're putting that person at risk, at massive risk. And everybody who watches it has to know these people who are performing, the young women who are performing, are massively at risk. The girls who used to appear in Playboy and Penthouse, I've interviewed them. I mean, after they have appeared, okay, they not only are viewed differently by their own family members, they are at risk. They are getting horrible phone calls, threatening, wanting to come over and rape, because people, when they view them, assume that if they do this here, they can do this for me, for him, for anybody. So these are young women who have followed up those experiences with egregious lives, despite what you read in their PR pieces in Playboy. Egregious lives where they've been threatened with every kind of rape, and they have experienced every kind of
So
horror.
what motivates, because there is a whole movement of amateur porn,
Yeah.
and YouPorn or whatever it is, and you can videotape yourself with your partner and upload it. What motivates people to do this?
Well, generally speaking, we have created a very mentally disturbed society. Grandpa and Grandma did not nearly have the kind of problems we have. Yeah, so we've created a psychologically impaired society. The young women will do anything these days to get the love. Look, that's a natural thing. Women will try to gain the love of a man, and they will pretty much go anywhere, do anything at this point to what we call nest, to get somebody who will love them. Yeah? So they engage in all kinds of behavior. And once you begin, the addiction starts, because the adrenaline is pumping, your psychological impairment is such that you become addicted to this behavior. So there are people who do this for quite some while. In the old days, we used to know that was mental impairment, that was what we would call mental illness. Yeah, mental illness. And for that, people used to seek help. And the loss of God, the loss of tradition, the loss of any kind of stability moves people into this direction. It's tragic, and the main thing is everybody out there is looking for love.
You mentioned addiction. We were talking within the scope of exhibitionism and putting this stuff up on the internet, but do you believe that it's possible to get addicted to pornography as a consumer?
Oh, do I believe it? Oh, because of course. I mean, that's been so thoroughly established. You go on the web and look for the numerous studies. Your brain on porn is one of the studies. I mean, everything that we know now. The mirror neurons act so that you work on the human being in such a way that we imitate the behavior of others. There is not any question. And the fact that pornography began as cutesy pie little girly pictures and cutesy pie cartoons, and has disintegrated now into massive adult abuse of children, babies, infants. Are you kidding? So we started, and every kind of disease in the world, is associated with pornography. The ones who perform, the ones who interact. It used to be the swinging, all these pendulum things, where the human being is attempting to find intimacy, love, relation, to be a creative human being with another human being. And they will never find it so long as they are using pornography. Never. I guarantee it. Anybody out there who thinks they're going to be able to find peace and intimacy through any kind of pornographic association, you will not. You will fail, you will fail, you will fail. You blame yourself, you blame the other person, you blame your children if there are children, but you will fail.
Is it, after consuming pornography, have there been any studies about erectile dysfunction?
Oh.
Is it true that it is harder to have an erection after consuming porn?
Yes, indeed. There is. I wish I could think of the name of it now, but you can find it on the web. There's a thing called NoFap. You have to understand, pornography always will be associated with masturbation. Masturbation and pornography go together. It's just a song. Like a Anyway, there used to be a song about just, things that go together.
Love and marriage.
Love and marriage go together like a horse and carriage. Yeah.
Father said to mother,
how's it?
You can't have one without the other.
Yes, well, masturbation and pornography go together like a horse and carriage.
Right.
Yeah, and you can't have one without the t'other. Anyway, so the same thing is true of erectile dysfunction, which is a clinically nice term for saying impotence. And it used to be in the 1950 something, 60, reports were coming out that for the first time, men were having problems, with potency. No, it was about 1960s. Okay, so there's been a lot of research. So there's a no FAP website.
What does this mean? What is FAP?
FAP is masturbation. No FAP website. Okay, so we have thousands and thousands. Not we. It's they have a recovery groups that use this. With thousands and thousands and thousands of boys, because they're starting with pornography when they're about 9, 10 years old. They're getting it, and girls, boys and girls, and men and women who write in regularly and say, okay, I stopped masturbating for 2 weeks, and my brain fog is gone. I didn't know I had a brain fog. My interest in girls has gone up, or I can maybe, and then 6 months, I'm functioning. The guy can function. There is not any question at all. There's been enough work done, but the pornography industry is massively strong, and the pharmaceutical industry is massively strong. So most of this information is kept from the public. When guys are having problems with, quote, erectile dysfunction, which is impotency, they are, okay, what is potency? Potency is with your own power. Potency means with your own power. Impotency means you need something else, somebody else, some picture, something to have power. So you're not working with your own power as a male, yeah? You are using something to give you that power. So the definition is clear. You are impotent. If you need pornography, you're impotent to be aroused. And it will not maintain itself. You're going to end up with less and less ability and needing stronger and stronger material, or more and more females, kind of thing. Yeah.
What does do you know what this word FAP means? Where it comes from?
It refers to the masturbation.
Okay.
Yeah.
I heard it's related to the sound.
Oh yes, that's right. You're right. It is. Yeah. It's the sound that a guy makes when he's engaged in masturbation. FAP. So yeah, and what they say is you have to reboot. This is all young techie talk.
So rebooting means stop masturbating.
Yeah.
How long does it take for a young man to become functional again, to lose the brain fog, to be interested in women again, natural women in real life? To be able to get an erection again. Has there been any studies to your knowledge?
I don't know about how long. We know from all these guys who have, and by the way, this is from France, from England, from China, from Yugoslavia, it's from the United States, it's from all over the world these guys write it. And women. Yeah. Well, it depends. It depends then on how young the person was when they started. And the older people, if you started when you're older nowadays, there aren't that many that answer that requirement. But if you started when you were older, then it's less time. Okay. But when somebody has started when they were, say, viewing this stuff when they were 9, and now they're 20 or they're 18 or something, yeah, it's much harder. And they fall. They say they fall off. And then they have to reboot again. Yeah. So it's a serious problem, and it's not one people read about because it is too profitable to keep it going.
We were speaking the other day about an actor called James Dean, a porn actor.
Oh yeah.
Who had said that he wanted to set up a paywall on porn sites with credit cards, so that underage children could not have access to porn online. Why would he need to say this?
Okay, the pornography industry, like the tobacco industry, like any industry of that kind, yeah, the tobacco industry had to create impetus for children to smoke. The sooner you get a child to smoke, the longer you'll have him, and he'll be an addict. The same thing with the pornography industry. The sooner you get a child to key into pornography, and much of it is to seduce the child, yeah? Oh, there are cartoon things that lead the child into the pornographic websites. There are all sorts of techniques.
Like Bart Simpson and his mother, or the Jetsons family together.
Yeah, doing sex things, yeah. And a child, they don't, they're curious. Yeah, they're curious. So they push a button, and not only that, but so many websites like we used to have in the United States till they shut it down. The White House, a kid is doing research, so he goes into a website, and looks up the White House. He gets pornography. Yeah. Same thing with a whole slew of, and in the schools now in the U.S., and probably here to some extent, child is doing research in their classroom, on the web. The research resources take that child into hardcore pornography, as research, yeah?
We had recently in the newspaper some Quebec groups and Canadian groups wanted to make an online sex education course to respond to the online sex ed course that the porn companies were putting, and which led to their porn eventually.
Yeah.
Do you think that online courses for sex ed would be a good response to the porn industry?
I think online courses that just tell kids how bad all this stuff is would be a good thing, but they had nothing to do with showing anything. I mean, lectures for children that say the pornography industry, like the tobacco industry, recruits you, wants to take your life, yeah, would be good for children to know, I suppose. But the main thing is any kind of, quote, sex education belongs with mommy and daddy. And mommy and daddy need to be cleaned up too. Because the data are very clear. Pre-sex education, our venereal disease rate, our abortion rate, pregnancy rate for children, every kind of measure, every measurable kind of sexual problems, sexual crimes, rape, and so on, were, bottom line, mother and father were raising their kids for the most part to say, no, there are things you don't do, there are things you don't say, this isn't moral, let's talk about this when you get older, these things. Because you cannot overstimulate the child. The child is not prepared to receive any kind of stimulation beyond their capacity to understand it.
Okay, so let's talk about parents and education, since we're on that subject now. You said earlier that children as young as 10 years old, or maybe even younger, are already watching porn. The whole reason why Quebec wants to bring this, their pretext for bringing this sex ed course is because kids are having sex, it's a fact, and they're also watching porn as soon as they get a smartphone. So this is a reality. The state, from the state's perspective, it can't force kids not to have smartphones, and it's not going to go into the lives of everybody and tell people what to do. So isn't it justified in wanting to educate children because they're doing these things anyway?
It absolutely is unjustified to interfere with sexual information at all, but the state doesn't have a role. The state has a role to eliminate this material from all avenues, from magazines, from video, from your high-speed web, and so forth. That is the obligation of the state to eliminate any kind of material like this completely. Now, people say, oh, free speech. No, I'm sorry. We know the data are very clear that these things are extremely destructive to children, extremely destructive to adults, extremely destructive to the state, because we cannot maintain marriages, and without marriages that are maintained, you cannot maintain the state. We supply the ability of the state to maintain itself.
But what about all these parents who are, I don't want to say delinquents, but delinquent in their obligations toward their children, who do not educate their children? How are those children going to get educated?
It's a huge problem, but we have got to get the information about the harm of this material to the public. Now, that is difficult enough because the mass media is completely controlled. Yeah. And internet is full of fraud and so on. Okay. So, I mean, there's not a simple answer. We allowed this to happen on our watch over time. Yeah? It's been going on for 70 years since Alfred Kinsey first dropped his fraudulent bomb about children being sexual from birth and all of us doing these fun things and never paying a price. Since 1948, 1950, this has been going. This has been worked in our societies, in all of our societies. It's not going to be a simple process, but the public has to understand it has to be stopped. It must be stopped. It's taking too heavy a price. For what? What does pornography give anybody? What does it give us? What does it give the state? What does it give the government? What does it give the family? Nothing. Nothing except false gods, false idols. We can have only one idol. Yeah. And, you know, that if you have pornography, you're blocked from having God.
Most people, I don't know about most, but God is not involved with the state in this country. There is this notion of separation in church and state. Why would this be an argument for the state? I mean, the state doesn't want you to have a God, or doesn't want you or to have one or to not have one. It doesn't have a position.
No, it's not for the state, you know. It's for the individual. For the individual. If they want connection with something higher than themselves. But as far as the argument for the state is concerned, the state, the government, the taxpayers, the state is us. We the people. Yeah? And we are being destroyed. Absolutely destroyed. And this pornography in connection with this mass income it provides to pharmaceuticals and to evil people, to putting evil people in places of power, political places of power, judges.
Why would pornography contribute to putting people in places of power?
Because they want to continue having their income flow, their income stream. For example, when I have helped several women, and there are men also in this position who are losing their children to a pornography addicted parent. Yeah, and you go to the judge, and if the judge is himself pornography addicted or paid by the pornographer, they will rule in favor of the offender. They will not rule for the mother or the father who's trying to protect their child. Mm-hmm. That has consistently been a problem, and we're dealing right now in the United States. When I go back, there's a major congressional investigation of children who are awarded custody. The government, the judge has awarded custody of that child to an offender, a recognized sex offender, who rapes that child. That means, So you're handing your children over to rapists. Now they may be the father or the boyfriend or whoever it is, or even the mother. Yeah. But this is the corruption that we deal with now. And it's in every position at the university level. There's a research out by Dr. Lori Handrahan, Hadrahan. I recommend people go on her website and look at the research that she has been releasing about the number of professors, the number of leaders of the community, law enforcement, and so on, that have been arrested and convicted for child rape pornography, because child pornography is never just pornography, it is abuse of a child. So we have the interest now is no longer in pornography. Well, the pornography is not what it was 20 years ago,
Are you saying that pornography leads to child pornography?
Oh, indeed. Of course it does.
Why would pornography lead to child pornography?
Because the heightened arousal that you're getting from pornography, which people get from pornography, it's adrenaline, it's norepinephrine, which is similar, and cortisol, which is based on anxiety. Yeah. Okay. So the high arousal that the person gets from pornography, isn't going to be enough after a while. The arousal is not high enough anymore.
Oh.
You've seen something, and now you've seen it. Novelty is the basis of pornography, and you've seen that male and that female copulating, or maybe just the female, whatever. Then that's not arousing enough. I'm not aroused sufficiently anymore. So, and this happens to everybody. So then it drops. Well, you get 2 guys, with a girl maybe. Oh yeah, that's good. Okay, we got that. Click, click, click. We got that. Okay, now it's not so good anymore. Well, they get 5 guys with a girl. Okay. And that's not so arousing anymore. So it drops and it drops, and now a little sadism. We're into whips, we're into chains, Oh, that's not doing it anymore. Past the whips and the chains, and there are other things, beyond that. The proper ways that we have sex are no longer the only ways, so we're penetrating every aspect. And that's not, and we know that is what has happened. So little by little, then it goes to barely legal, which used to be, women dressed as little girls,
Well, adult women, acting like
little
minors,
girls, like minors. So they would have the hair bows and and all that sort of thing. So that's kind of got them, and from there it drops and you're going to come down to children, and from children that he wanted to block to have that wall, so that there would be no ability to reach children. So it drops to children, and then from children it's dropped to infants, rapes of infants. That you go on Handrahan's site, and you will see the kind of violence to little babies, newborn babies.
How significant? I'm sure these things exist, but do we have any statistics on the body of pornography? How much of it involves minors and infants?
As a matter of fact, no. And that's very important, because when I did my research for the Department of Justice in 1983, 84, I was working on that issue, and I was tasked by the FBI and the Department of Justice to begin to do that collecting, because this didn't just start today. I mean, this was happening back when with Playboy, for example, and when I said that my research found Playboy was promoting child sex abuse. It was promoting incest. It was doing child pornography. They denied it, and in the Netherlands they sued me, and I won in the Netherlands on child pornography in Playboy. Well, do we know, therefore? No, they stopped my research on that and didn't allow that to continue because there were threats of lawsuits and so on. That information is kept from the public. We cannot do that kind of research. Now, that's the reason that Handrahan's work has become very important. You must go and see exactly. I mean, your guy Ben Levin is on that list of professors.
This is he was a high-ranking government official under the Minister of Education in Ontario.
Yes.
And he pleaded guilty to a number of counts of
rape.
Crimes of rapes on children. He had videos of children on his computer, and he's the one who put into place the sex ed course in Ontario, which was widely disputed and people didn't like it.
But the values, the ideas of that sex ed curriculum are in your sex ed curriculum
in Quebec.
Here,
yes, of course.
Yeah, because it all stems from the same place. It doesn't stem from hard research. How would a man like Levin end up raping children, having child rape pornography in his he's the guy who lectured all over the world about sex, because the novelty that he received from first looking at something no longer worked. He wasn't sufficiently aroused, and then it dropped and it dropped and it dropped and it drops. It can, at this point, we are seeing infants, 1 month old infants, and they die from this. They die. This is pornography. Nothing else but the exposure to pornography and the refusal of our media and our government to allow the research that would establish these facts.
Let me ask you a question, because I never imagined that porn could go to pedophilia or pedocriminality. A regular guy, just a regular, normal guy, isn't corrupt, he doesn't... Just a normal guy watches porn. If he watches enough of it, I mean, you gave a roadmap towards pedophilia.
Yeah.
Can we expect somebody who watches enough porn to eventually get interested in this stuff?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And he won't know when it's happening. It will erode him, that normal, regular guy. Yeah? It will chip away at him, bit by bit, until eventually he finds himself there. Yeah, absolutely. Anybody disagree with me? We wait and see. It will get him. Yeah, because the material is there. Why is the material there? Why is child pornography there? Why does it exist? It did not exist 25 years ago. It exists today. In mass, because of the ability to reach out and to get that guy. And we know that's what it is.
The other day we went on a little road trip. And we visited a building in Montreal. Do you want to tell us about this visit?
Yes, sure. It was a nice, pleasant visit, driving along, the road, and there was this massive building, a completely innocuous, no signs, no anything, very modern building, a very techie building, and up at the top, just a light bulb, a big yellow light bulb, and it was Mind Geek, And you asked me, what is Mind Geek? Did I know what Mind Geek was? And I said, yeah, I think it's something that, deals with techie stuff, technological stuff, searches of some sort. And so we went into the building, and we were there for a short time because they escorted us out pretty rapidly. And it's the basis of this Pornhub, which is what distributes all this garbage, I would say. Yeah, it's more than garbage. It's mind altering, brain changing, because the brain changes. We have to emphasize this. We know the human brain changes physically with all of its experiences. Yeah? So if the experiences are pornographic, your brain is changing with those visions, with those pictures, sounds. Yeah? It's just like a alcoholic must remove himself from any alcohol symbols, clicking of the glass or anything, or it can put him back into alcoholism. Well, with pornography, how do you remove yourself from those scenes? Everything you see in life is associated with it, so it's reinforcing the brain consistently. Anyway, so we went into this respectable-looking place, and they had charity that they give to
Ronald McDonald
charity. They sort of had running video there, and they all looked very innocuous, very.
You could never tell it was a pornography company.
Absolutely, you could never tell that this was the center of pornography distribution
In the world. It's the biggest. They dominate the market.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Now, that's one thing that your government could do. They could say, what you're doing is not acceptable to us because we respect and preserve our children and our families. So move yourself out of our government. Move yourself out of here by such and such a time.
Well,
yeah.
We did speak with people, although we were escorted out.
Yes.
We went to have lunch next door.
Yeah.
And we met some people. What do you want to react to? How did these people react, and what did they say?
Yeah, there were, let's see, 6 guys, I think. There were 6 guys.
Young guys.
Young guys. They're, absolutely young guys. Techie guys, yeah. And they looked very nice, and they were sitting and chatting, and we were sitting on the table next to them, and I was with my colleague, and so we turned, to them and just asked them a little bit about what Mind Geek was, and and we explained that I do research on pornography, and we were curious. Well, these poor guys, my heart went out to them because they felt they first of all, they went silent. I mean, this was not a group of guys that, they were fearful, they were embarrassed, they were, as though little kids caught with their hand in the cookie jar. Mom and dad had come by and said, "What are you doing?" Yeah.
And you just asked if they work at Mind Geek.
Yeah, just ask that, and they immediately went into protective mode. Well, I do accounting. We do not. And when they left, we didn't attack them. We were
they got saved by the waiter who brought their lunch, and they turned around, and they were hushed for the rest of.
Yeah. Whereas they had been talking
and having a great time.
They got hushed. Yeah, that's putting it mildly. And when they left, we said bye, and they turned around and they all kind of, in a collective, give us a chance.
Oh, give it a chance. It's a great company.
Yeah. Give it a chance. It's a great company. Wow. so?
We had, I had discussions with friends about this company before. Because I know people who work there.
Yeah.
It's a really big company. It's like
huge.
Montreal's best kept secret.
Yeah.
And I had a conversation.
So why such a secret? Yeah.
They don't advertise that they're in porn.
Yeah.
They say they do search engine optimization, but I know they do film editing. You know, we know people who edit gay porn in there. There's all kinds of things going on. And I visited, to go back to our original subject, I visited the website to prove to my friend that there is incest on this website.
Yes. Oh, that's another very important.
And I said, no, there's no incest. And so I sent him some screenshots, and there's the mother-in-law with her son-in-law, the brother-in-law with the sister-in-law.
Yeah.
Why would a porn company bring these themes? Isn't porn good enough? Why bring in incest to the mix?
Because incest increases their level of shame and fear. The higher your level of shame and fear, which is all related to arousal, shame and fear, the higher that goes, and mixed with the genitals, with something sexual, the higher your ability to be sexually aroused. When you plug, which by the way, Playboy did a lot of incest. When you plug in the rapes of your own children, the idea that you're raping children, not just children, not even the neighbor's child, but your own, there is nothing that is going to shock your system and cause more, quote, arousal, but that arousal isn't sexual. People don't understand that. That arousal is fear and shame mixed with the genital high, and they assume I'm sexually aroused to having sex with my daughter or with my son, yeah? And that frightens people at first. At first that frightens them. But the fear gets transposed into sexual arousal.
So why would fear give an erection? I've felt fear before. I haven't been aroused. What's the connection between fear and arousal?
Because testosterone, flight or fight, okay? The high arousal that you have from one experience will transpose to the other very often. It's like what happens when a soldier, because I worked with a psychologist who told me about how that works. A soldier sees his buddy blown up right next to him, and he has an erection, and it, and responds with ejaculation perhaps, and he thinks that he's the most horrible, perverted person in the world. Why? Why does that happen? They bring that trauma to a psychologist, and my psychologist friend told me, he said, they come to me so traumatized from that experience, and I have to explain to them, no, you're not a sex pervert. That's just a physiological response.
Is this a military psychologist?
Yeah.
Which army is that?
Israeli army.
Israeli army.
Yeah.
Has this been documented?
I don't know that it's been officially documented. We know that when you when somebody is hung, that the same process takes place in certain cases, which is one of the reasons they stopped doing hangings, public hangings. So it's a physiological response. Well, if you have that physiological response and you think that it's a sexual response, then that heightened arousal can be transposed to the child in the next room. I have interviewed so many victims who have been victims of incest, who tell me the magazine was in his hands, he brought the magazine into the bedroom, and he raped the daughter or the son. And you didn't need high-speed technology for that. You just needed the picture. I had one girl who said that on the closet door, he had a centerfold. He would open that closet door to the centerfold, rape her while he was looking. And it's in Playboy. Playboy has pictures of the centerfold laying across the body of the girl, and she's beautiful, young girl, but he's having sex with her through this centerfold. And she says, "Do you still love me, Henry?" Yeah, no. He's having sex with the centerfold. So if that's a little baby in the next room, the arousal is much more intense because he knows that what he's doing is probably the most horrific thing he could ever do in the world.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
What solutions do people have? What solution? Pornography is everywhere. It's at a lesser extent in advertisement.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh.
Less graphically, but it's in a lot of advertisement.
Oh,
So it's in our ads. It's on everybody's smartphone. It's on the internet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's on everybody's Wi-Fi. What are we to do as a society? Whose role is it to stop this?
Well, it should have been the role of academicians, and the government to hire academicians to do this research, basic research, to tell the public what I'm telling you, I had that role through our Department of Justice for a period of time, but the political backlash was such that what I found was never allowed to be publicized to the people. If we had known what was going on at that time, as in 1981, we would have been able to take care of it perhaps at that point. We've allowed it to grow like topsy. Till it's taken over everything. I have no answers for you.
Well, now we have the internet. The information can get out.
Yes, yeah. So watch my videos, and read my books. Go to the sites that give you information about this. Your Brain on Porn is one, and it will direct you to others. On my website, I direct you to other resources. And people have to become extremely aware. First of all, they have to become aware in their own homes. And if pornography is in your home, I absolutely tell you, throw it out. If it's in paper form, if it's on the web, you've got to figure out what to do about that. I don't know, because it's everywhere. And they have the little pop-ups on the, on the web where they, look at, and it's everywhere. Look at this lady, she's that, with that is all to bring you to the porn center. That is all to bring you into the porn hub, into Pornhub. All those are triggers to do that. And you have to understand, you as a normal human being, as a normal man, as a normal woman, look, our teachers, we have the research that was done on our teaching profession, 10%, 10% of our students, I forgot how that went, but anyway, the abuse that's going on in the schools is unbelievable, and women are doing the abusing as well as men. your female teachers are doing that.
Oh, they're getting arrested. They get a lot of press when a female teacher has sex with a student. That gets worldwide coverage.
Not as much as you'd think. We have many, many more than the ones that you read about. The ones you read about are probably the very beautiful.
Yeah, the hot ones.
Yeah, the hot ones.
Yeah, and everybody comments under those articles and say, "Oh, I wish I was a student in that school."
Right. And that woman probably has 3 children. She's married and she has children. And when you make those comments, think about those children, who are reading about their mother who has been arrested. Yeah. So, and the majority of our sex offenses are taking place in the schools. We have a huge problem with this, the abuse of the children in the schools by teachers, coaches, and so on.
You mentioned a statistic to me once. Because I want to get into one last subject, which is religion. You said something to me about a ratio per capita about sex offenders within the church and within education.
10 to 1, right. In education in the United States, anyway. And fortunately, we had some research on that coming out of one of the universities, which was confirmed. 10 to 1 with the priests. 10 for every priest abuser, we have 10 teachers, or it's people in the education profession. There's a site for that. It's called Sesame, 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 and you add sex abuse, and you'll read all of the research that's out there now on teacher abusers, on educator abusers. Because this is a site for that education abuse,
Is it easier to become a teacher than a priest, or to have access to children?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, my goodness, you don't have to go through any kind of difficulties to, you have to do a lot more to be a priest than you have to do to be a teacher. And not only that, but you get this massive influx of children. You have thousands of children you can deal with, And and it's a serious problem, and that's also with the female teachers as well, and the married female teachers as well as the male teachers.
Yeah. Well, you were invited by a Catholic Parents Association. You see us fighting to protect our children, to protect our education, but really it's to protect our children. Do you think or from what you see, is anybody else taking up this fight? We are motivated by our way of life and our view of the world and our Christian beliefs, but is there anybody else doing what we do?
At this point, I would say no organized effort. It does more than the organized Catholic movement, and their Life Site News on the web offers a lot of information pretty regularly about what's being done to protect the children from all these various crimes. These are crimes against children. It's massive, people. It didn't just happen, but it's happening on our watch.
On this note, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for coming to Montreal.
Thank you.
Thank you for the body of your work.
Yeah.
The defense of children.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing. This is the greatest challenge of our civilization.
Yeah, it is. There's no question about it. Thank you for inviting me.
Loved having you here.
Loved being here with Marion. Ah, that was a pleasure, of course. And my dear friend, Elisa Jordan, who's done so much work in the area of trafficking, the trafficking of children.
I was very happy to meet her and to learn about her work. Thanks again.